Hi everyone, I'm Evie Kao, a volunteer with OCA Greater Houston.
And I'm Jessica Kong. I'm the festival director for Happy Fest, and we will be moderating for tonight's Q&A. We're going to see Evie in a few seconds for our second Q&A, so thank you, Evie. We'll see you in a bit. Now I'd like to introduce our first director that'll be with us tonight, and that is Kaitlyn Faye, the director of Fruit Fly.
Hi.
Hey, Kaitlyn.
Hi, Jessica.
Thank you for joining us all the way from LA.
Yay. Happy to be here.
Awesome. We're going to dive right in.
Okay.
Your film is a hilarious tale about a lovelorn girl who falls in love with unavailable guys, in this case, gay guys. And you mentioned in your director's statement that the characters' experiences were loosely based on your own personal experiences, but that you also wanted to shed light on the character's decision to seek romantically unavailable men as a way to delude herself from seriously pursuing potential suitors. Is that how you felt in your own experiences?
Well, I definitely have crushed on a good number of gay men in my life, which as a straight woman can be seen as somewhat problematic.
Right.
There's a conflict of interest there. But so, sorry, the question was, because you were asking if I'm sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I
So
know
it was
that
a
was a
really
lot.
long question. Could you remind me of the last part of the question?
Yes. So through your own personal experiences and the characters' experiences,
Yeah.
how do they compare? Were they very similar? Is that how
Okay.
you felt during your own experiences?
I got you. Okay, so definitely for the main character of Fruit Fly Jules, she's in many ways quite different from myself. I kind of upped the desperation factor for comedic purposes, because I do have a tendency in the past. I did have a tendency in the past to write heroines who are kind of just very desperate for something. For me, desperation didn't really come in the form of love or relationship, but I certainly felt desperation for many things in life, things that I wanted to have. The idea behind this is to be able to look into your internal workings and recognize subconscious patterns that we all have that lead us to act in irrational ways. It just so happens that with this lead character, with Jules, hers manifests in a self-protection mechanism, right? She goes for people who aren't really available for her because it keeps her from getting hurt. I use that as a metaphor for many things in life, whether it's work, whether it's friendship, whether it's just not being able to get your dreams sort of fulfilled. We develop so many cognitive distortions, and I kind of wanted to set that in a comedic setting.
Right.
I don't know if that made any sense.
No, I mean, I think I kind of get it, or at least, when I interpreted like Joel's character, sometimes you set your own barriers.
Yeah.
And so you trip yourself up because
like self-sabotage.
Yes.
Yeah. No, definitely. Sorry, you were saying.
Oh, no.
Yeah.
That was exactly the same kind of route I was going.
No, definitely. Yeah. It's all very subconscious, and it's such a specific scenario. It seems somewhat larger than life, but the truth beneath it is actually quite common. And that's kind of what I wanted to translate in that film.
Absolutely. Mm-hmm. It looks like we have a question from the audience.
Okay.
From Miss Dang. What's your inspiration for Fruit Fly?
From Miss Dang. Oh, okay. My inspiration for Fruit Fly was my own life. So I was in Houston last year for Following Jamie, a film that I did with Charles Gray, who I'm pretty sure is in the chat. He and I were meeting like a couple of years ago, and he was supposed to help me produce this like sci-fi film that I was trying to do. And I really hope this person doesn't find out. But at the time, I was in a Shakespeare show called A Midsummer Night's Dream in Topanga, which is this nice, rich area in California. And I was playing one of the leads, whose name was Hermia. And I have a lover, a boyfriend in the play, Lysander. And it was played by this really handsome, really talented, intelligent, nice guy who happened to be gay. But I didn't know that at first. And the season was very long. We're talking like most of 2017 here. And we were carpooling. So a lot of this kind of came from that experience. And I was telling Charles about it. And he was like, why are we making this sci-fi movie? You should be making that film. So I was like, yeah, I literally scrapped everything in that moment. I was like, okay, great. I'll just do this next one instead, you know.
That's so funny.
Yeah,
well,
that's
shout
how
out to Charles.
I know. Thanks, Charles.
Well, that kind of leads into one of my other questions.
Yeah.
You were mentioning Following Jamie, which we promoted last year and we were able to screen.
Yeah.
So in both films, you wear a lot of hats, you know, both behind the scenes, in front of the camera. Do you have a preference on being behind versus in front?
I feel like this is blasphemy towards my past self, but I actually prefer being behind the camera now. From a very, very young age, I really enjoyed performing through acting and eventually singing. But I've always been a writer, and I always wanted to make movies and, you know, direct plays. But I didn't think it was a profession that was very welcoming towards women, specifically women of color. So I didn't even bother. You know, it wasn't until a few years ago where I decided to take a crack at it. I was going through a serious stall in my acting career, and movie making kind of just took off. And I could not believe the sheer amount of joy, excitement, and inspiration one can experience from behind the camera as opposed to being in front of it.
I think that's kind of like a lot of songwriters too.
Oh,
they have like a certain story they want to tell, and they try to get other people to sing their song. They can't quite get the same, you know, tone or emotion. So they're like, you know what? Screw it. I'm just going to do it myself.
You know what? Okay. Oh man, this is what makes me kind of want to go back to acting, because sometimes I'm like, you know what? I feel like I could have just done this part myself. So I'm not saying no to acting forever. I definitely, after this quarantine, I want to go back into it because I really miss it. I think I just want it all at this point. I want to be in front of and behind the camera. So, but they're being behind the camera is especially joyful for me right now. But yeah, I know what you mean. Sometimes you're like, all right, let me just do this. You know, I think there's a question.
Oh, we've got a comment about the first film. Reminds me of when I first came to the U.S. in the second grade. Some kids were nice. A lot were like Bobby. So that was in reference to the mask from Home.
Yeah, that was, oh man. So shout out to Miss Dang. She's actually my former roommate. We went to the same college together, and I know all about her story about coming from Vietnam and being made fun of by kids. That first story. I didn't make the first film, mind you.
Oh, yes.
Case anyone is confused.
Yes, that was from director Jordan Hwang.
You know, but yeah, that one was really powerful. I really enjoyed that one, and the last one too. So good. Wow.
Yes, but I think it has similar aspects with your story in terms of you know, you always have these awkward moments with other people that you know are other friends or classmates and peers, and you know how to get past that kind of that feeling. Kind of leads into my next question. There's a common phrase, tragedy plus time equals comedy. But I was reading in an article that kind of paraphrased it, where it's tragedy plus time allows for comedy. So did you find that this was true when writing and directing the character, Jules?
I find it true just in life in general, to be honest. I do think that comedy and tragedy are both sides of the same coin. And I find that a lot of the things I write tend to be either highly comedic or highly, am I going to say this right? Tragic? Tragic. Highly comedic and highly tragic. It's like tragic.
I thought it was a hybrid word. It's okay.
Yeah. I should have just gone with it. Yeah, highly comedic or highly tragic. And when I was in college, the best class I ever took was a class about comedy, believe it or not. Not just kind of the sitcom comedy that you're used to seeing or SNL, but the history of comedy, what's considered old comedy and new comedy. And there was something called the comic turn of mind, which is a phrase to describe the difference between a character, a comedic character, and a tragic character, or rather a comic hero and a tragic hero, who triumphs and who makes it at the end. The difference is a tragic hero has a tragic flaw that they never really overcome, because it's kind of like fate, right? When you have this mindset that everything bad that's happening to you is going to keep happening to you and you have no power whatsoever, bad things end up happening. And in many ways, Jules kind of resigns herself to that, right? Mm-hmm. She's just like, oh, my life is so effed. I mean, even the ending is kind of controversial because she's still kind of repeating the same patterns, right? But there's hope because she might go for someone this time who's actually available towards her. But a comic hero has what's called the comic turn of mind. They look at the situation and think, okay, how can I overcome this? How can I make it through what's happening to transform it into a situation that works for me? And I think in Fruit Fly, Jules kind of talking to that waiter serendipitously in the diner, he just lays it out for her. This total stranger, he's like, I'll tell you right now, you don't have a problem going for gay guys. You have a problem going for unavailable guys. That's what you need to concentrate on. And I think a lot of times we just need that moment in life, that moment of clarity, that kind of revelation for someone else who's outside your own head to tell you what your issue is. It can be quite astounding. It makes for good art.
No, I like that. That was like phrased very perfectly.
Oh, thanks. Sorry, talked a lot.
Well, thank you so much, Kaitlyn. We're actually going to wrap up with this part of the Q&A, but we'll bring you back towards the end for some final questions.
Yeah, no worries.
Awesome. Well, we'll see you in a bit. Now I'd like to introduce Evie again, and she's going to bring in our next director.
Hi, thank you, Jessica. It's my pleasure to welcome Carol Wynn, director of No Crying at the Table. Hi, Carol. Thank you for joining us today. I think there's just a little technical difficulties. We're actually going to do an interview with Jordan first, just till we sort it out with Carol. Hi, Jordan.
Hi, what's up?
Hi. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Thank you so much for joining us today. Cool. Yes, so Jordan is the director of Mask from Home. Yeah. So the first question is, the mask is obviously heavily treasured by the main character, but the boy ruins it with the marker. What did this scene represent?
Which scene exactly?
The scene where the boy ruins the mask with a marker, the one in the classroom.
I think for that scene is just one of the many times where it could feel like there's a lot of misunderstandings when different cultures come together. And so for her, she really respected this object that she had. And to other people, this object might not mean anything, but to her, it's like something that is, get passed down from her father, and she was able to have it, and it's something that she could remember home by. So to have anyone, mess it up was just tragic for her. And I think that's just understanding respect from different cultures, and it's just, that's why she had it.
Yeah. So our next question is, there is a Chinese superstition about having mirrors in front of your bed, and there is actually a scene where the mirror is visible from the bed. Was this intentional, and what other aspects of Chinese culture did you purposely place, and what did they add to the film?
I actually wish I researched that, but no, I didn't. I didn't know about the mirror and that tradition. The reason for the mirror was just, I don't know, just knowing, researching girls and the different people have mirrors in their rooms. I have mirrors in my room. So that's why I had it. I actually have a mirror right in front of my bed, so now I'm just like,
Oh.
that problem. But the different cultures would just be like, I don't know, like my mom, she would always tell me to like bring snacks and treat my teachers like extremely well, you know, and I would kind of like ignore her a little bit, but I would know that like my mom is intentionally wanting me to like be a really good child on the first day. And other things are more obvious, like you know, the dad wearing a very traditional outfit, and then the protagonist is dancing like a very like traditional like ribbon style dancing, and that was something that really proud of the actress because she worked really hard on it, and we did a lot of rehearsals just to, you know, get it right.
So our next question is, the dancing throughout was very beautiful and had that nostalgia of traditional operatic movies. Was that what you were trying to convey, and why did you choose that form of expression?
So there's two sides. One is Peking opera, which is what the dad was wearing, and then the other one is more ribbon-based dancing. So I wanted to choose two traditional styles of art, but differs in a way where one is a little more modern than the other, to show that, you know, like one is like with the daughter. And with ribbon dancing particularly, is I personally love just the way that the ribbon flows. I come from a wushu martial arts background, so it's kind of tied in that kind of choreography and rhythm and that flow. So I was working with her to try to find that, because a lot of these Chinese art styles have that kind of like posture that she hits.
We actually have a question from the audience, from Charles Gray. Were the two Asian female leads actors or non-actors? I thought their performance was so real raw. I really felt their emotions. How did you go about directing them?
Oh, very cool. Thanks, Charles. Um, well, both of them are the same age, and so that was interesting to work with that age group. But honestly, they were like really great to work with overall. They had different personalities though. The protagonist, she's more of the mindset of like wanting to work really hard at something. So if she does something, and even if it's really good, she would just be so hard on herself. And I have to like help her put things in perspective on like things that we needed and how good it was, and things that we actually need to improve on, and just always like lift her up in the ways that she needs it to be successful for the scene. Meanwhile, the other character, her name's Joy, she was more of like a cool kid, where I didn't want to I don't know, I guess being a cool kid is just, you gotta like keep it chill and like not try so hard with it. So one's a try hard, one's a not so try hard, but she's very talented in like her other things like art skills, and she like, this is her first time acting. And yeah, I guess just working with her, I was doing different things like I remember one of the first things I wanted to do was, I noticed that she was like an artist on the side. So I had like these really cool Muji pens, and I had like a Muji highlighter, and
Muji pens are the
cool.
best.
It's like, it was this highlighter. I gave her a yellow one, but it's like this highlighter can like, you can see through, because when you highlight, and it's like you can see what you're drawing on. So I gave her one of them because I wanted her to like me, and she was really impressed by it. And after that, we started to like talk a little bit better, and I gained her trust. So it was little things like that that it was just like, you know, not taking it too seriously, but also wanting mutual respect with each other. And, you know, we're all here to make a project that we're proud of.
I actually love Muji, but we don't have a Muji store in Houston, so we have to like
No.
either ship it, or like whenever you go to like LA or New York, just like hoard them or like stock
No,
up.
totally. Yeah, it was shot in Houston, so that's why she was
Oh.
probably like shook that what she saw was pen. She's like, "Where is this from?" Like, she didn't know, so I had to like tell her about it and like show her my Muji pens.
So we actually have another question from the audience. This one is from Ice Cream Truck. What was the backstory for the dad?
Backstory for the dad. So it's not talked about too in-depthly. So these backstories is just more of like made up for myself and the characters to understand like what was really going on. But basically the mom and dad divorced for, you know, whatever reasons. Like for her, it was probably like for business reasons and wanting to come to America and take on like a business or something out here and like be more independent, while he was probably more like traditional in his status of wanting to stay where he was. But at the end of the day, I think he was a really good father to the protagonist. So that's why she has like really fond memories of being with him. So I think it's just a side of like for like the daughter to like separate, it's just really hard when there's any separation at all. I think I answered the question. I don't know.
Yeah. So I actually cut out a little bit when you're talking about the actresses. So just like let me know if you've already answered this question. But our next question was, where did you find your lead actress? She was really good.
Cool. So this project is associated with a school called Panorama Film Academy, and it's actually based in Houston. And so it's a like film and acting program in Houston for kids in like the middle school range. So they wanted to promote this film and promote like the two actors that they had, and both of them were students who went there. So when I was attached to the project, they were already like predetermined, and I was kind of working with them. And at first, the two actors were supposed to be the opposite characters, and I decided to flip them to the way that they are currently, because I just felt like talking with them, she just felt more naturally suited towards that, and also she could dance and all of that.
So our last question is, what do you hope audiences take away from the film?
I think, I mean, whatever they take away is it is what it is. But this one is a little more fantastical, where it's not as dramatic as I would say, or like truly realistic as like a real situation would happen. So I guess it's more of like an uplifted feeling of like what it could be when like really strong friendship happens and you meet someone that's awesome and like understands you. And I guess yeah.
Yeah.
Seeing wait, hold on. I would say I would want people to take away that like even through like these times of like misunderstanding and being in a new location, that if you allow yourself to like open up and trust someone else, that you can like develop strong friendships.
Thank you. Just personally, this film really resonated with me because like growing up, you know, just like getting made fun of like being like Chinese and everything. So I really enjoyed your short film. Thank you for making it.
Sweet.
Yeah. So anyways, thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you in a bit. We'll see you in a bit for final questions, and we're going to move back to Carol.
Hello, sorry about that.
Oh, no worries. Hi, Carol. Thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
I forgot to mention earlier, but she is the director of No Crying at the Dinner Table. So our first question today is, there were a lot of scenes with water in them, from washing the bok choy to the bathtub scene. What does water symbolize for you?
I think when I was figuring out which rooms to put the characters in, my main priority was to figure out what each character would do in them in the first place and where in the houses they would be, because it was important to me that they had their own space. And with my sister in particular, I thought of the image and the symbol of being in a womb, and being protected and calm and feeling safe, being in that bath filled with water. So that's what the water symbolizes to me. the water in the bok choy, there wasn't much intention other than, my mom's just doing what she's doing. But with my sister, that's what I wanted to capture.
Thank you. So for our next question is, each film feels like a personal story of yours, maybe because this isn't the first time you've cast your family in it. But this short film in particular is actually extremely personal because you're interviewing each member of your family about some deeply personal memories. What made you decide to interview them, and how did you convince them to participate?
Well, I was going to actually make a fiction film about how love assimilates through each generation. And when I was interviewing my family about this theme and this idea, which my process is very, I go to the actual characters in real life and see how they feel, then I write my script with that. I discovered stories that I didn't know about them. And this really shocked me because I felt like there was a bigger story to tell than just love. A story about communication, a story about the barriers that many immigrant and Asian families face within intimacy because of language, because of culture, because of generations. And I could definitely relate because I had a story that I had never told them as well. So that was when I had shifted my route from a fiction to a documentary, and from actors to my real life family.
Thank you. So our next question is, in many parts of the film, actions and even facial expressions speak more than the words themselves. There are many ASMR moments. How did your family react to this film?
It's interesting because I feel like my film, many second gens and younger people can relate with my film than an older Asian generation who are my parents' age. They went through the process, and it was a very emotional process. And after this, we had grown a lot as a family. We started saying "I love you" to each other, which is huge because we hadn't said that before. But watching the film over, my sister cried, but my parents, they kind of already knew what to expect, and they're just like, huh, okay. Seeing themselves in front of an audience in a big screen, it was more like, my mom was like, you should have put makeup on me, or you should have made me wear a dress or something like that. And I think their reaction stems from the fact that a lot of people in their age and in their generation have these stories, and it's normal. It's normalized to not talk about them, and it's normalized to keep these griefs and these burdens to yourself. And for them, when I was making the film, I feel like they didn't think that their stories were any special to be made into a film and to be shown into a big screen. But I think after some reactions from the audience, they have learned that many people can relate on another level.
Just like a little side note, but sometimes I realize this film because I would say like "I love you" to my mom, and instead of like saying it back, she'd just say "Oh, thank you," or like "I know." Yeah, so yeah, I really like this film. So just kind of like a follow-up to the second question. In many parts of the film, oh, I'm sorry. Sorry, this isn't your first time here at Happy Fest. Last year, we featured your native short Tundra. You do a great job in capturing the pathos of each subject or character in both your documentaries and narratives. What is your writing process like, and what inspires you to write about these subjects?
My writing process is very personal. Sometimes it stems from events from the past, things that I'm still working through, or what I'm reflecting over in that part of my life, in that time. With No Crying in particular, that is what I was focused on in that time of my life. I wanted to explore communication, and I wanted to push the boundaries and to try to change something in real life with my family. With my other films, it's usually ideas that I want to explore that I can't verbalize. A lot of that has to do with assimilation, cultural identity, or things in my family that I still can't yet put words to. It wasn't until after I made No Crying at the Dinner Table that I found out the word intergenerational trauma. And I was like, oh my God, that's what this film is about. When we had premiered at TIFF, the programmers had written our synopsis for us. And it wasn't until I saw that word that I knew this is what my film is. This is the word for my film.
Yeah.
And I feel like sometimes I have to go through that process of exploring all the avenues of this word that I want to find, but I don't have or I don't know yet to be able to get there.
That's really beautiful. So our next question is, what would be your advice to the younger and older generations in trying to talk more to their immigrant parents in their past?
Ooh. I think this one is a hard one because all families are different. And all families have a different level of westernization than other families may have. So I don't think I could give advice, but something that has helped me is to be able to try to advance my Vietnamese, because when you talk to someone, you want to express what you want to say in the full extent. And with my half Vietnamese, half English, sometimes I'm not able to. So either trying to explain certain words in English to my parents or learning those words in Vietnamese has helped me a lot.
So our last question is, what do you hope your audience took away from your film, and does your family talk more now because of this?
Yes, my family talks more. I think that the I love you part after was a huge deal for us. It was mostly between me, my mom, and my sister. My dad still kind of struggles with that, but I think it's strictly what has been imprinted in him as an Asian male. And the restrictions around showing emotion, I feel like, are harder on Asian men than Asian women. So we have been able to talk more. We have been able to try to be more open with each other. But we're trying, and we're not perfect, and we will never be perfect. But I think everyone's trying to do their part. What I wish the audience could take away from this film is hopefully they're able to relate to this in some sort of way, whether they're from an Asian family or not. I think that all families have something that they're all going through. Families are so complex, and the dynamic is never going to be perfectly found. Families are something that you're born into, and the people who are in your family are people that you can't choose to be family. So I hope that they can relate to trying to overcome family barriers together somehow.
Thank you so much, Carol. We have time for a couple more questions, so let's bring back our other filmmakers. Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Welcome back.
Nice to meet you.
Hello, everyone.
So we have 3 questions. So I guess Carol can go first, and then Jordan, and then Kaitlyn. So our first question is like a census question. As a volunteer with OCU Greater Houston, we are working as community advocates to empower individuals to register to vote and fill out the census. 2020 is census year and an election year, so it is crucial time to make a difference. Why is it important even during a lockdown to do our due diligence?
Well, that's a tough question. I think with everything that's going on right now, it's more important than ever to be able to do your due diligence, talk to your family, and be able to have open discussions about what's going on in the world right now. I know because me and my parents were raised in different generations and different countries, we often disagree on a lot of things. And I haven't found the perfect way to express what I want to say with them and have them see certain sides that I feel like they haven't learned about. But Canada, where I'm from, at least, the city that I'm from is Toronto. Our population is huge when it comes to immigrants. And I feel like it is our duty to be able to contribute to the country in an educated way to vote.
Jordan, do you want to go next?
Well, I think voting is just, that is your ballot, that's your voice. And to have your voice out there is really important. It's also part of the reason, like, a lot of us make these films, our voice out there, and to share that into the world so that people have opinions and can create movement. And especially with things that are going on now, it is really important because things are becoming more blatant and it's more like in your face on like, what do you think is right or wrong? Like, what do you care about? So I think it's important to vote.
Okay, so our next question is just like if you guys have any upcoming projects you guys would like to share about. Anyone can go.
It's dead right now.
I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's fine.
Oh, I was just saying that I accidentally skipped you on the census question.
Oh no,
so
it's okay.
If you want to answer,
wasn't sure. When you're talking about the whole voting thing, are you specifically referring to just the census this year, or also voting on kind of the social justice issues that are coming up right now and that will come back in November?
I think both. Yeah.
It's like both, right?
Mm-hmm, yeah.
Yeah, I think I feel like I slept for like 30 years and then I woke up last week and the world was burning. So yeah, I'll be voting too, for sure. My parents are also immigrants. They vote as well, but we have a lot of talking to do when it comes to social justice issues. Let me just leave it at that. Yeah.
If you also want to start us off with like the upcoming projects question.
Oh, well, I had this big thing going on. I'm Filipino, and in the Philippines, their version of like CNN/Disney/Marvel is called ABS-CBN. It's like the huge conglomerate network that basically broadcasts all the movies, all the shows, all the news. And I got hired by them as an independent contractor, writing feature films. We were gonna produce an original feature that I'm writing. But then they got shut down by their president. So I don't know if you guys know about this, but their president, don't shoot me, is like the Filipino version of Trump. He didn't no, he's so crazy. He's insane. I'm sorry if I offend anyone by saying this, but he like literally sanctions like executions in the street because of a drug war going on. But he basically didn't like how they weren't airing some of his propaganda, so he shut them down. So everything's in chaos right now.
Oh my God. Yeah. I'm so sorry to hear that. But,
yeah, no, it's okay.
Congratulations on getting the deal.
No, yeah, we have to fight for free speech laws internationally.
Carol, would you like to talk about any upcoming projects you have?
Yeah, I'm currently working, I'm in development for an animated short, a documentary, and it's based off of my experience going to Vietnam for the first time this past year and all of the identity crises that I had. It was inspired by Persepolis.
Ooh.
That's cool. You're gonna jump from like live action to animation?
Oh my god, it's so scary.
Good luck,
I knew
that's
nothing. I knew nothing about animation, and now I'm just like, what did I get myself into?
That sounds really cool though. Like animations are always really cool. So Jordan, do you have any upcoming projects?
Yeah, right now I'm really fortunate that I was able to film some things before the quarantine happened. So right now I'm in post-production for a couple of things. I made music videos for this girl. Her name is Elise Go. She hasn't started posting yet, but she is going to be releasing more videos. She has a 5-song EP. So we made videos for each of the 5 songs. So, we're going to figure out the timing right now, but, you can follow me on my Instagram, Jordan Hwang, to find more about that. And also last year, I shot a documentary for the Try Guys. They're a pretty big YouTube channel, and they went on tour last year to 20 different cities. So it was a great opportunity where I traveled along with them, and it was just me all by myself filming them and interviewing them. And right now we're compiling that into a documentary feature.
That's really cool. I actually grew up watching the Try Guys like before they became like their own separate YouTube channel. So that's really cool.
Nice.
Also,
yeah, they are really nice, just like their videos.
Yeah, and then music videos are also really cool. Like I've recently like got into like just like watching them and then like looking at like the different cuts and everything and like how they make them. But yeah, that's awesome. That's really cool.
Thanks.
So our last question is, if the audience would like to watch your film again or share with a friend, how can they view or purchase the film? Like any of the streaming platforms or
well, eventually, Happy Fest is pretty much like the last film festival that like my film has been in the film circuit. So I'm gonna post it on Vimeo pretty soon, just to get it out in the world, let people watch it. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
yeah. Oh, I was just gonna like say name someone.
Well, I was gonna say, I'm the opposite of Jordan. This one is Fruit Fly's pretty much first festival for the circuit. I don't know about you guys, but ever since coronavirus, I feel like everything's in limbo. Like,
Yeah,
it is.
Just thinking of all the money I spent
difficult.
on festivals that aren't gonna happen this year.
I know.
It's like so sad. Yeah, so if you guys want to see it, message me and I'll give you the password. It's on my Vimeo, but it's password protected for now. Yeah.
For me, we have a couple of online festivals to go, but it's still like murky right now because we have to figure out all the restrictions that weren't there before with physical festivals, like geo-blocking. Is there what is it called, a paywall and all that weird stuff. And then we have a community screening on Zoom as well. And then hopefully we'll be able to put it on Vimeo permanently in the fall.
This question is kind of like a little bit irrelevant, but why do you guys prefer Vimeo over YouTube? Or is that?
I just follow what everyone else does.
I feel like if like Vimeo and YouTube were food, like YouTube is like a corn dog and Vimeo is like a steak, you know?
Oh,
so
I like that. That was kind of savage, though. That was kind of savage towards YouTube.
No hate, YouTube. I love YouTube.
Because it's more public, right? So it's more accessible to more people. Vimeo, you have to get that person's account.
Yeah.
And like it's kind of like a resume, right? You can put all the video content you've created on there.
Yeah.
It's just a page.
And just generally, like Vimeo has more cinematic content than YouTube.
Yeah, I use YouTube all the time. I watch YouTube all the time. But like my personal stuff is like, it's not always like the most commercial thing. It's not always like the most content creator thing to like go out for views is something that's like a personal like passion project. And Vimeo is more of a platform, like a portfolio, where like it doesn't have ads when you watch it. So when you upload it, you can just like expect people to watch it like the way you want it to.
Thank you. I always wondered that.
Yeah. No, we're just trying to be rebellious.
Yeah.
YouTube is too mainstream.
It's too mainstream. Yeah. Everyone watches it. It's not cool anymore.
Yeah, it's not.
Okay, well, thank you guys so much for joining us today. I had a great time talking to all of you.
Cool.
Thank you guys for taking time in your evening to call in. We hope you guys have a great evening as well. But thank you guys. I guess I'll see you guys later, maybe. Yeah.
Thank you. So I'll see you at the after party, right?
Yeah.
We're all getting drunk together.
Yeah.
I wish, man.
Perfect. Awesome.
I'm gonna.
Yeah.
Yeah. So this completes our 7th day of films. Please join us for our next block of films tomorrow at 6 p.m. Before we end, I'd like to acknowledge the current racial injustices, particularly against our Black communities. We hope to stand in solidarity with Black Lives Matter. Please remember to visit us at tinyurl.com/BLMAAPI or the link listed to learn more concrete Houston-specific ways to be involved. We will also be conducting a special panel next week to discuss the current climate and ways we can engage and best implement our calls to action. Stay tuned for more details. Thank you for joining us at Happy Fest and have a good evening.
We would like to acknowledge the grief and outrage right now, especially within our Black communities. Our city, Houston, continues to hurt. George Floyd was a native Houstonian, and according to the Houston Chronicle, we have had 6 police killings this past month alone.
As Asian Americans, we have to acknowledge and interrogate our own anti-Blackness and relative privilege within American society. We have to actively unlearn our own biases. It was Black activists who pushed against racist naturalization laws and supported Asian Americans after the racist murder of Vincent Chen.
Black activists stepping into action have benefited our community in profound ways. We must move beyond being a bystander and join the larger movement of Black Lives Matter. Join us in donating, protesting, petitioning, educating ourselves, and supporting our Black brothers and sisters in whatever way we can. Visit tinyurl.com/BLMAAPI, all caps, for more detailed ways to help, including Houston-specific bail funds, scripts to call local representatives, and translated letters to our family members, all of which you can join us in doing in between screenings. On behalf of OCA Greater Houston and the Happy Fest Committee, thank you for joining us on this broadcast.